Today we're going to start talking about intrusion detection systems. Whereas firewalls provide the gateway through a security perimeter, the choke point through which all traffic must pass through, intrusion detection systems provide the monitoring and analysis of traffic, processes, and data within a network to detect violations of the security policy. Intrusion detection systems can be network-based, inspecting traffic that is attempting to or that has entered the network, or they can be host-based, monitoring the activity of a host on the network to detect anomalous behavior that would indicate an intrusion has occurred. We'll start by defining an intrusion. An intrusion is an event on a host or network that violates the desired security policy. It's also known as an incident. Examples of intrusions might be an unauthorized attempt to, or an unauthorized connection to an internal host. It might be an attempted connection, such as is done with port scanning, or it might be an event on a host, for example, an illegal program that executes. An intrusion detection system, or IDS, is an automated process that monitors events, network events or system events, and alerts an administrator to potential harm. The IDS will monitor network or system events, log any related data, conduct some sort of analysis, and then report to a human any events that are deemed potentially malicious or harmful. There are two closely related terms that often get used interchangeably, but that have slightly different meanings: intrusion detection systems and intrusion prevention systems. Intrusion detection systems are fully automated systems meant to support forensic analysis. The systems log and monitor activity and apply various analysis techniques to identify events of interest, intrusions that are violating the security policy. If such an event is identified, the IDS alerts the human, who will then analyze the evidence gathered by the IDS to determine what happened. An IDS may raise an alert after the fact or while the intrusion is in progress. Being able to do the latter requires being able to assess each incident quickly as it occurs. The critical difference between IDS and IPS is that while an IDS is meant to detect intrusions, an IPS must prevent intrusions. The IPS takes some action to prevent an intrusion from occurring. For example, an IPS may be implemented as part of a firewall, the signature-based packet filter that inspects the contents of an incoming TCP stream and drops packets that violate the security policy. That can be the IPS. This difference between IDS and IPS means that the IPS must be able to respond and decide at the speed of incoming traffic or at the speed of execution. The difference between an IPS and a firewall can feel fuzzy, and in practice it is fuzzy, especially because an IPS system, such as the signature-based packet filtering, is often implemented as part of a firewall. But it doesn't have to be, and these are two distinct terms. A firewall is a choke point for traffic passing through the security perimeter or an enterprise network or subnetwork. It has traditionally been network-based, although end hosts now have simple firewalls built in that will, for example, block malicious traffic to the machine when on an open Wi-Fi network. And firewalls are rule-based. There's a list of rules, and the incoming packet is matched against the rules to determine whether to allow or drop the packet. By contrast, the IPS has as its goal stopping security violations in progress. It can be host-based or network-based, and IPS work through various approaches. It's not necessarily a list of rules that are matched against. An IPS requires general compute capabilities. A processor is needed to execute the IPS programs. But a firewall does not necessarily require a general processor. A rule-based packet filter can be implemented as special purpose hardware. So now let's go back to the discussion of IDS. An IDS can be network-based or host-based. The two approaches are complementary, and it often makes sense to have both within an organization. A network-based intrusion detection system is situated at a network gateway or the switch of a local area network. The gateway is what connects the organization's network to the internet. The network-based intrusion detection system covers many machines at once, so it doesn't touch the endpoints, the hosts, and it doesn't consume resources on the hosts. It also has a view of all the traffic through the choke point or through that point on the network, and that might make it easier to detect some kinds of attacks. And the events monitored by the network-based intrusion detection system are the packets that come through the system, through the gateway or through the switch. A host-based intrusion detection system is situated on an endpoint and therefore only has the viewpoint of the activity at that host. And this is a key difference between the network-based and the host-based IDS. An active attack against a specific machine, for example, some malware that has been installed and is being executed on a machine, is likely more easily noticed by a host-based IDS that has direct visibility of endpoint behavior. But there is some malicious activity that will only be identifiable by an IDS with a wider viewpoint that can see what is happening across the network. For example, an attacker that has gained user-level access to a machine within the network and is looking for other machines in the network that have exploitable privilege escalation vulnerabilities might generate traffic on the local area network that looks suspicious to a network-based IDS that can see all of that generated traffic. The other advantage that a host-based IDS has is that it's not blocked by encryption, whereas if the payloads of packets are encrypted, the network-based IDS can't do much with that encrypted packet. The events that are monitored by the host-based IDS include the packets coming to that particular host, but can also include system activity on that machine, such as writes to system and application logs, any file system changes, like changes to file permissions, accessing particular files, running file integrity checks, system calls. For example, the order of system calls made by a particular application may deviate from the expected order if that application has been infected with a virus. And anomalous CPU usage might also suggest suspicious activity that is worth investigating. There are three main types of methodologies for implementing IDS. They can be signature-based, specification-based, or anomaly-based. A signature-based methodology matches events on a predefined pattern of known bad behavior. Any event that matches the pattern will trigger the IDS alarm. Antivirus software and packet filters employ simple pattern matching. For antivirus software, a sequence of raw bytes is matched against a database of known malware. For packet filtering, the fields of a packet are matched against a set of rules. More complex pattern matching can use regular expressions. Pattern matching is fast and accurate, at least to the extent that the defined patterns are accurate. On the other hand, pattern matching techniques can only find already known intrusions, and the database of patterns must continually be updated. With specification-based IDS, each application or protocol is fully specified. The set of allowed behaviors or sequence of events is specified, and the IDS monitors activity and triggers an alarm if there's any deviation from the allowed activity. This has the benefit of being able to detect new instructions that have not, or new intrusions that have not been seen before. On the other hand, it is difficult and time-consuming to create a complete specification for any protocol or application. Although once it is specified, that specification can be used for all hosts or all network vantage points. It's universal. The specification must be complete. All the allowed behaviors must be specified, otherwise the IDS would trigger false alarms. The specification should also be sound. Anything that is specified as allowed must in fact be benign behavior. If the specification is too lenient, there will be false negatives, a failure to trigger the alarm when malicious intrusions occur. With anomaly-based IDS, a profile of acceptable behavior is developed over an initial training period, and then subsequent activity is monitored to look for deviations from the developed profile. Profiles can be developed using a number of event types, including file access patterns and system call sequences. Anomaly-based IDS have the advantage of being able to detect previously unseen intrusions without requiring a handwritten full specification of benign behavior. On the other hand, some legitimate users act in anomalous ways, and the IDS might have too many false alarm triggers. Another concern with anomaly-based IDS is making sure that there's no malicious activity present during the training period. This can be challenging when developing a profile of network behavior at the gateway of a large organization, for example. Any public large organization probably sees plenty of malicious traffic attempts during the day. Okay, so let's recap the three methodologies for IDS. Signature-based IDS are fast, but can only detect already known intrusions. A new attack that has never been seen before will not be stopped by a signature-based approach. This approach also requires constantly updating the database of signatures of known attacks. Specification-based approaches can detect new intrusions. Any attack that exhibits events outside the specified behavior will be detected. There is the challenge, however, of manually developing the specification for every protocol or application to be monitored. And anomaly-based approaches solve the problem of writing the specification by instead relying on a training period during which the IDS learns to recognize acceptable patterns of behavior. Any behavior that deviates from the learned profile will trigger an alarm. Generating the profile must be done for each instance of the IDS, as different IDS at different locations in a network may see vastly different patterns of benign behavior. And it's critical that during the training period there's no malicious traffic. In practice, it is the case that all three approaches suffer from both false positive alarms and false negatives, failing to trigger an alarm.